Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a spiritual blueprint that makes a really bold claim: how you can definitively crush Satan. So, we're going to unpack a pastor's take on this powerful verse from the Bible. He lays out this whole step-by-step blueprint for what he calls spiritual victory. All right, we're going to break this down into 5 parts. First, we'll look at the promise itself. Then, we'll get into the foundation and the right mindset. After that, we'll cover the spiritual arsenal you'll need, and we'll wrap up with the final outcome. Okay, so let's jump right in. The central promise here, the big idea, is that believers actually have the power to crush Satan, who's described here as the ultimate leader of all forces of darkness. And right off the bat, a really key distinction is made. This isn't just about shouting or singing or resisting. No, the word crushing is framed as something way more intense. It's about completely trampling and neutralizing an enemy, leaving them with absolutely no power.
So, how do you get there? Well, according to this teaching, the very first non-negotiable step is absolute obedience to God. It's the foundation for everything else.
And this obedience is explained with a pretty powerful analogy. You have to think of yourself like a good soldier who follows their commander's orders without question, without complaint. The only goal is to please them, even if it means going through some tough stuff.
And this verse is used to really anchor that analogy. It frames this kind of soldier-like obedience as the absolute first qualification you need to even get started on this path.
Okay, let's move on to the next piece of this puzzle. It's all about getting your mindset right, your mental and moral posture. Now, this part is really interesting. The ideal mindset is described as this kind of duality. On one hand, you're supposed to be wise, strategic and super smart about doing good for other people. But on the other hand, you need to be totally innocent when it comes to evil. Kind of like a child who has no clue how to lie or cheat.
So you can see, you have to be an expert in doing good, but a total amateur when it comes to doing wrong. This mindset is both a shield and a sword. It protects you from being corrupted by the enemy's tactics, but it also makes you a much more effective warrior for good.
All right, so once that foundation of obedience and the right mindset are in place, then we get to the arsenal, the spiritual weapons you're going to need for this fight. The first weapon he talks about is the peace of God. Now, don't think of this as just being passive. It's more like a martial artist who calms their mind to get laser-focused before a fight. It's about having a calm, strategic mind so you can think clearly during a conflict. It prevents you from making those reckless, angry decisions. Think David versus Goliath. It was strategy, not rage, that won the day.
And this peace is what lets you see the whole spiritual chessboard. It allows you to target the king in the game, Satan himself, instead of getting bogged down fighting all the little pawns. According to this teaching, that focus is absolutely crucial for a decisive victory.
Okay, the next part of the arsenal is authority. And the pastor makes this crystal clear. You're not acting on your own strength here. Not at all. This is about wielding authority that has been delegated to you, directly from Jesus. So he breaks this authority down into a few key steps. You have to first receive the peace of God, then receive that authority from Jesus. You also have to know the power of his name and understand that you are chosen. The point is, Satan doesn't fear a cross hanging on a wall. What he apparently fears is a believer who gets it, who understands they've been chosen and knows the power they carry in Jesus' name. So, what's the end game here? What happens when you actually apply this blueprint? Well, the outcome is described as something far beyond just a simple victory. We're talking about the total annihilation of the enemy's power over you.
When he says crush, he means it. The idea is that the enemy is so completely defeated that they literally cannot rise again. They can't get back up. The fight is over.
And this image of ash under your feet, wow, it just drives home the finality of it all. The enemy is rendered completely powerless, not just beaten, but turned into dust. Something that has no power, no influence, and no way to ever come back. And the final result isn't just about your personal victory. According to this teaching, it sends a shockwave of fear through the spiritual realm, so much so that even the bravest warrior, whose heart is like a lion's, will just melt with fear. Even the strongest enemies will tremble.
So let's just recap the key takeaways here. Victory, according to this blueprint, starts with that absolute soldier-like obedience. Then you need that specific mindset, wise in doing good, but innocent when it comes to evil. The fight itself requires the weapons of divine peace and authority. And the result? The enemy's total defeat and a sense of fear that spreads.
It's a really powerful framework for sure.
And it leaves us with one final thought to chew on. The pastor describes this whole blueprint for total spiritual victory. But what then is the ultimate source of a believer's power? Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer.